All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'd like to begin by giving all praises, all honor, all glory to Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rachakodash. Praises and glory to the Heavenly Father's true name in the name of His only begotten Son, with whom the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, and also in the name of His Holy Spirit. That's what I said in the ancient Hebrew tongue. Now I'd like to give double honors double to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers that surely do rule well. Peace, love, salutations to the men, the brethren on the four corners of this world that continues to spread this word, this gospel in all sincerity and in truth. Is your brother Collab coming back to you with another bit of edification to the house of Israel, mainly the elect. All right, this year 2022, the year of Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahweh Shai, turning up. All right, and as you can see the title today, a Ramadan special, the promised land given to the promised seed, or belongs to the promised seed. And what inspired this lesson was a video that I came across by Arab, all right, Arab rabbi, all right, for lack of better terms, or teacher or leader, Islamic leader by the name of Ahmed Hussein Didat. All right, a lot of Muslims will know this guy. All right, people that are part of the Islamic religion or belief would know him. All right, he died in 2005, and he spent most of his Islamic career, doing missionary work, traveling, debating Christians, debating so-called Jews, concerning biblical topics, and topics along that line. All right, and I have a short clip in here of him, sharing a conversation he had, or a debate he had with one of his boss, his employers, sorry. All right, at this job he used to work when he was much younger, concerning the land of Palestine, which Palestine is all of Canaan. All right, the land promised to the children of Israel. All right, the true Israelites, which are the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians, or Israel by seed. All right, that is scattered amongst the nations that look like the other nations today. Palestine, all the lands of Canaan were given or promised to your forefathers. Therefore, those are your lands that you are about to inherit when the Lord returns, as concerning prophecy. All right, but he was speaking to this Jewish, all right, a small hat, his employer, and they were debating concerning who Palestine belongs to. So I'm going to just play the clip in which Palestine belongs to none of the both. All right, the small hats, they stole our land, 1948ers. Esau, Edom, he stole our land, as prophesied, and also the Ishmaelites. All right, the Arabs, they also fight. They are fighting for our land. All right, land that doesn't belong to them. And that's why the scripture says it. Before I go into the lesson, I want to read this precept here. In the book of Jeremiah, chapter 12 and verses 14. Just see if I could blow it up a bit so that it could be clear to the viewers, right? How is that? That should be better. All right. So yeah, Jeremiah chapter 12 and verses 14, it says, "For thus saith the Lord, against all mine evil neighbors, against all the other nations, that touch the inheritance which I have caused my people Israel to inherit. Behold, I will pluck them out of their land." You're going to pluck them out of our land. Because they in our land. Heathens today in our land fighting that Palestine war between the Arabs and the so-called Jews. That is heathen nations, Ishmael, all right, and Esau, fighting for the land of the true Israelites, the so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native American Indians. So the Most High is saying, I will pluck them out of their land, out of our land, and pluck out the house of Judah from among them. He's going to take us from amongst, as prophesied. All right, he's going to send the angels to guard up his elect from the four winds. All right, these different nations will be scattered, as pertains to Deuteronomy 28 and verse 64. All right, which proves, Deuteronomy the 28th chapter, proves who the Israelites are, the one who the curses are upon today. All right, and the so-called white man, All right, the Ethiopian man, the Arab man, they don't fall under the curses. So therefore, they are not the people of the Most High. They are not the people that are to inherit. They are not the promised seed. All right, because the promised seed, when you follow the narrative of the scriptures and you follow the history, the promised seed, they went into captivity. All right, for 400 years under the Egyptians, and guess what? The Lord promised them a land, but due to sin, they weren't able to inherit or stay stable or settle in that land. All right, they fell under the curses, which are part of the curses, them being removed from the land. We're going to read a bit about that as well. All right, so it says, and it shall come to pass after that I have plucked them out, I will return and have compassion on them and will bring them again, every man to his heritage and every man to his land. So the Lord has promised to bring us back to the land. He said he will bring us. All right, these 1948ers, they took it upon themselves to go there, which is cut number one, proves that they are not the people of the book. They are not the people that was given the land, promised the land, because they brought themselves back. All right, didn't the Lord say, I will bring you to Zion? And if they are the people that are in Zion as prophesied in Isaiah the second chapter, it said that what? When it is the nation of Israel returns to their land, they ain't gonna learn war anymore. But there's still wars going on. The Palestine wars going on. Two nations fighting for the land of the true Israelites. Alright, the scripture didn't say we would have to fight back for the land. Say you're gonna bring us there. Alright, so without further ado, let me play the clipping. Listen up.
So I said, look, this is a test. Is it a valid test? He said, of course it's a valid test. I said, let's apply it. Let us apply to this prophecy. It's a prophecy that Ibrahim alayhi salam was going to get the whole of Palestine, Canaan, for an everlasting possession, him and his children. So I said, you see, sir, the day when Abraham died, it says in Genesis chapter 25, verses 9 and 10, and his sons, Isaac and Ishmael, buried him in a cave. Buried Hazrat Ibrahim in a cave. The field which Abraham purchased of the sons of Het. There was Abraham buried. There was Abraham buried and Sarah, his wife. They were buried in the same place. What land? What he had purchased with hard cash. He got nothing for nothing. He paid for it, according to the Bible, your book. So in other words, he had nothing. And we are told that he didn't have enough land to rest his foot upon. Not 1 square foot of land he owned. What was given to him for nothing. This is what he had to buy with his sweated labor. Then in the book of Hebrews, for the Christians now, chapter 11, verse 13, these Hebrews, you know who? Again, Paul. Well, we use him. This Paul says, these all died in faith. All these prophets, were given promises. Allah, promised them the golden carrot dangled before them. He said, these all died in faith, not having received the promises. Not having received. They didn't receive it. Allah was dangling this carrot before them, like a donkey. Come, come, come. And they were being led. This is what Paul is telling us. But having seen them afar off, you see that golden carrot, donkey, far, far, you keep on going for it, they receive nothing. So I said, now, is it true, sir? Is it true that they didn't receive the promises? They got nothing. He got nothing. He was supposed to get the whole of Palestine for an everlasting possession, and he didn't own, not 1 square foot of land was given to him. Is it true? So, well, his book says so. So I said, therefore, this promise could not be of God. And the battle was over.
Right. So he said that the battle was over when he debated the Jewish guy, claiming that the promise that the Most High gave to Abraham was not a promise of God because Abraham didn't step into the land. He didn't settle in the land. He was buried in a cave. All right, which I'm going to read about the promise in the book of Genesis, chapter 15. All right, but before I do, let me just explain, as the title has it, a Ramadan special. The reason why it's entitled Ramadan special, these Muslims right now, they're in that mood of Ramadan, a time where they fast for 1 month, a time where they, basically is a sacred month for them. They pray, they fast, they seek repentance from their God Allah. All right, one of the idols that was prophesied that our people would worship and serve, I just keep this in Deuteronomy 28:64. They will worship other gods, even wood and stone. You understand? So people today they caught up in false religions, false doctrines. So yeah, they're in the time of Ramadan, which is totally against the knowledge of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushai. So now this is Genesis chapter 15 to the promise, right? Genesis chapter 15, and I'll start at verse 12. It says, "And when the sun was going down, a deep sleep fell upon Abram," all right, which in the Hebrew is exalted father, father exalted, Abaram, all right. "And lo, an horror of great darkness fell upon him. And he said unto Abram, Know of a surety that thy seed shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs." And when it says thy seed here, because Abraham, all right, he had 8 sons. All right, he had Ishmael, he also had Isaac, and he had other 6 with Keturah. You understand? So when it says thy seed here shall be a stranger in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them 400 years. Which seed is that? That's referring to the Israelites. All right, it speaks about that in the book of Exodus, the 12th chapter. All right, the Israelites were the ones that were in captivity under the Egyptians in a strange land. All right, and also that nation whom they shall serve will I judge. And afterward shall they come out with great substance. As you can see, we left in our armies. All right, we borrowed of the Egyptians as we left. All right, to go into the wilderness by the hand of the prophet Moses, through the command that the Most High gave him to tell Pharaoh to let my people go. So we were delivered. And thou shalt go thou shalt go to thy fathers in peace. So he's telling Abraham what's going to happen to the children of Israel. I tell him also that he's going to go to his fathers in peace. He's going to die. Thou shalt be buried in a good old age. It says, but in the 4th generation they shall come hither again, for the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full. So guess what the Lord is telling him, that hey, it's not the time yet, all right, for you to go and inherit these different lands. You're going to die, all right, and then after generation after generation after generation, all right, which is the time period that the Most High gave, so that what the Canaanites, all right, the dwellers of that land, the promised land, could commit their iniquities. As it says, the iniquity of the Amorites is not yet full, because the Most High was allowing time to play out, so that these nations that were in the land to fulfill their wicked acts, to fulfill their wickedness, so that when He sends the children of Israel to conquer them, all right, the killing of them, the slaying of them would be justified. As the scripture says in the book of Job, there is not a inquired if there anyone that perished being innocent. No, not one. All right. So the Israelites didn't just go and slay these nations. All right, because according to law, when you go to the book of Deuteronomy, the 10th chapter, Deuteronomy 20, sorry, and verses 10, it says, when thou comest nigh unto a city to fight against it, then proclaim peace unto it. So the nation of Israel is basically was a peaceful nation. We didn't just pick fights. All right. So these nations that we went and conquered was by the command of Yahweh Ba'ashem Yahushua. It's going to say that, and it shall be, if it make the answer of peace and open unto thee, then it shall be that all the people that is found therein shall be tributaries unto thee, and they shall serve thee. So where we could have held back from shedding blood, we held back. All right, but made the nation that was in opposition to us, we made them tributaries, made them our servants. And if it will make no peace with thee, but will make war against thee, if this nation want to fight, then thou shalt besiege it. And when the Lord thy power hath delivered it into thy hands, thou shalt smite every male thereof with the edge of the sword. Kill all the male, the men. But the women and the little ones and the cattle and all that is in thy city, even all the spoil thereof shalt thou take unto thyself. The women, why are we taking the women? To have them as ours. Deuteronomy 21. All right, and thou shalt eat the spoil of thine enemies, which the Lord thy power hath given thee. It says, thus shalt thou do unto all the cities which are very far off from thee, which are not of the cities of these nations meaning the Canaanite nations, nations that was in our promised land, but of the cities of these people, the ones that are in our promised land, which the Lord thy power doeth give thee for an inheritance, thou shalt save alive nothing that breatheth. Kill them out. But thou shalt utterly destroy them, namely the Hittites and the Amorites, the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hivites and the Jebusites, as the Lord thy power had commanded. All these are Canaanite nations. All right. So that's why the iniquity of the Amorite had to be fulfilled. Going back here, the iniquity of the Amorite had to be full. All right, process of time, generation after generation, the Lord was allowing them to fulfill the wickedness so that when He sends the nation of Israel at them to wipe them out, it would be a justified wiping out, it would be a justified cleansing. You understand? So now, let me read some more. It says, and it came to pass that when the sun went down and it was dark, behold, a smoking furnace and a burning lamp that passed between those pieces. In the same day, the Lord made a covenant with Abraham. He made who? A covenant with Abraham, saying, unto thy seed, and we're gonna find who that seed is, have I given this land. Abraham had 8 sons. All right, so which seed is this? That is that unto his seed have he given this land. That claims that, which is a Ishmaelite, I believe he's a Ishmaelite, Arab, so-called Arab, claims that Palestine belongs to them, and then the Jewish Rads at Sula, and we know about that history, them Revelation 2 9ers, or as we call them 1948ers, all right, the thieves, they claim that the land belongs to them. But it's not so. All right, we're going to find that out. It says, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates, giving you some location, the Kenites and the Kenizzites and the Cadmonites, Hittites and the Perizzites and Raphaims and the Amorites and the Canaanites and the Girgashites and the Jebusites, listing all the nations that we will conquer, all right, to get our land, defeat to get our, to wipe out. All right, that Deuteronomy 20 just went into. You understand? So as I said, the iniquity of these nations, the Canaanite nations, had to be fulfilled before. So Abraham didn't get to step foot into the promised land and dwell there, all right, because it wasn't that time yet. All right, the nations that was there had to fulfill their wickedness for the time appointed for the nation of Israel to wipe them out. All right, after the third and fourth generation. So this is Wisdom of Solomon 12 and verses 1. It says, for thine incorruptible spirit is in all things, therefore chastenest thou them by little and little that offend, and warnest them by putting them in remembrance wherein they have offended, that leaving their wickedness they may believe on thee, O Lord. For it was thy will to destroy by the hands of our fathers both those all inhabitants of thy holy land. For it was what? Thy will to destroy. The Most High wanted to destroy them. All right, and the Most High doesn't just destroy people. All right, there's something that these people do. He causes them to do something first that will result in their destruction. All right, so the iniquity of the Amorites had to be fulfilled before the Lord destroyed them. It says, whom thou hatest for doing most odious works of witchcraft. For what? For doing most odious works of witchcraft and wicked sacrifices. So they had to do them thing until uh, all the generations was corrupt. And all those merciless murders of children and devourers of man's flesh and the feast of blood, with their priests out of the midst of their idolatrous crew, and the parents that killed with their own hands souls destitute of help, that the land which thou esteemest above all other might receive a worthy colony of power's children. might receive a worthy colony, and that worthy colony of power's children is the Israelites. All right, the children of Israel. And that's why it says in what? In Deuteronomy chapter 11. See if I could get on. Deuteronomy, the 11th chapter. Let's bear with me a second. Deuteronomy chapter 11 and verses. I'll start at verses 10. It says, "For the land whither thou goest to possess it, it is not as the land of Egypt, from whence he came out, where thou sowest thy seed and waterest it with thy foot, as a garden of herbs. But the land whither ye go to possess it is a land of hills and valleys, and drinketh water of the rain of heaven, and which the Lord thy power careth for." A land which he what? He careth for. What did it say in Wisdom of Solomon 12? That the land which thou, let me bring it back here, that the land which thou esteemest above all other. It says it in Deuteronomy 11:12, a land which the Lord thy power careth for. The eyes of the Lord thy power are always upon it, from the beginning of the year even unto the end of the year. All right, it says, "And it shall come to pass, if ye shall hearken diligently unto my commandments, which I command you this day, to love your power and to serve him with all your heart and with all your soul, that I will give you the rain of your land in due season, the first rain and the latter rain, that thou mayest gather in thy corn and thy wine and thy oil. And I will send grass in thy fields for the cattle, that thou mayest eat and be full." You understand? So the Lord is about to give the nation of Israel the promised land. I tell them, hey, keep my commandments. Because these nations that was spewed out of the land of Israel on the Palestinian coast, these nations that was conquered, all right, that dwelt in Palestine, was due to their sins. The scripture said, liken it to the land spewing them out. When you read in Leviticus, let me get that. Leviticus chapter 18. So how these nations and they operated in the land with all their sins, the iniquity of the Amorites. All right, the nation of Israel were not to do so. But guess what we did? So that's how we end up being falling under the curses and getting scattered into these different lands. The land also spewed us out. Leviticus 18 and verses I'll start at verse 24. Yeah, 24, verse 24. It says, "Defile not yourselves in any of these things, for in all these the nations are defiled, which I cast out before you. And the land is defiled, therefore I do visit the iniquity thereof upon it, and the land itself vomited out her inhabitants." You understand? So these different nations were cast out of the land. They were conquered by the nation of Israel due to their iniquities that was full. So the Lord allowed them to grow in the wickedness so that he could rightly, justly send the Israelites, send us, all right, to destroy them, to get them out of the land. So the land belongs to the Israelites. All right, it was a promise given to the Most High, to Abraham and his seed. Because he made a quote from Hebrews 11. What does Hebrews 3? Let me get that. Hebrews chapter 3, Galatians. Galatians. I believe it's Galatians. Galatians chapter. Same Apostle Paul. You mentioned Paul. Verse 16. Galatians chapter 3 and verse 16 says, "Now to Abraham," you see that? "Now to Abraham and his seed were the promises made. He said, not unto seeds as of many, but as of one, and to thy seed, which is Hamashiach." Because ultimately, through Yahweh Hamashiach, we're going to have access back into the promises of our forefathers, which we lost through sin. All right? And this was also reiterated in the book of Romans. So it's not just Abraham, and Abraham too. If you understand reincarnation, Abraham will be a part of those that inherit the land when our Lord Yahweh Shai comes. Romans 9 and let me get the exact verse. And verses 9, it says, "For this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah with Sarah is the wife of Abraham, Sarah is going to have a son." And who was that son? That son was Isaac. All right. And not only this, but when Rebekah also had conceived by one, even by our father Isaac. And I believe I should have started some verses up because it's going to speak about Abraham and him being the seed according to the promise. Verses 7. So I start there. It says, "Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children." So Abraham had 8 sons, but they weren't accounted as the children of power, children of the promise, children of the covenant. But in Isaac shall thy seed be called. That is that seed. All right. When he told him, "And I'll give unto your seed an inheritance," that is Isaac. Coming through Isaac, not past Ishmael Street, past the Arab Street, and it's going to Isaac. That is, they which are the children of the flesh. The children of the flesh is who? The rest of the sons that he had. These are not the children of God. They were not the children of God, but the children of the promise are counted for the seed. That is Isaac, coming through Isaac, and then ultimately through Jacob. And this is why I have here the book of Exodus, the 6th chapter, Exodus chapter 6, and starting at verse 1, it said, "Then the Lord said unto Moses, Now shalt thou see what I will do to Pharaoh, for with a strong hand shall he let them go, and with a strong hand shall he drive them out of the land, of his land. For the time was fulfilled that we should be under these Egyptians. And power spake unto Moses and said unto him," remember he said, "the nation that have them in bondage he will judge." See, this was the beginning of the judgment. When it is they let us go, from that period of time when we sent Moses, was the time for them to be judged. All right. And power spake unto Moses and said unto him, "I am the Lord, and I appeared unto Abraham, unto Isaac, not Ishmael, unto Isaac, and unto Jacob by the name of power almighty, but my name Yahweh, it's supposed to be Yahweh, was I not known to them, not well known." All right, because Abraham, he, when you read in the book of what's that, Genesis, let's pull that real quick. Genesis chapter 12. Let's bear with me a second. Let's try and juggle here with one device. Genesis chapter 12, I believe. Right, Genesis chapter 12 and verses 8. It says, and he removed from them, this Abraham, I'll start at verse 7. "And the Lord appeared unto Abram and said, Unto thy seed will I give this land." Again, which seed is that? Isaac. "And there," and going on to Jacob, it says, "And there builded he an altar unto the Lord who appeared unto him. And he removed from thence unto a mountain on the east of Bethel, and pitched his tent, having Bethel on the west and high on the east. And there he builded an altar unto the Lord, and called upon the name of the Lord." He called upon the name Yahweh. All right, so by his name Yahweh, he wasn't well known, but he was known. The scripture says in Genesis, I believe that chapter 4, when Enos was born, then began men to call upon the name of the Lord. So the name of the Lord was around. All right, but it wasn't well known. Not everyone, just like today. All right, the name of the Lord is here. We know the name of the Lord, but there's a initiated few that have it. All right, is elect. That which has been is that which shall be. That was happening in the time back then as well. Okay, didn't reveal his name to everyone. So now, going back to the Romans 9 and verses 7, says, "Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called." That is they which are the children of the flesh. These are not the children of power, but the children of the promise accounted for the seed. For this is the word of promise. At this time will I come, and Sarah shall have a son. And not only this, but when Rebekah also shall had conceived, even by our father Isaac, which who came out of him? Jacob, Jacob and Esau. But guess what? Esau was rejected, and Jacob was chosen. As what it says in verse 13 here, as it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated. Alright, so there you go. The Most High is doing the selection is that he chose again. He chose Jacob. Jacob is the one that he continued the promise, the choice line through. Alright. So going back to the Exodus 6 and Exodus chapter 6 and verses 4 now continuing. And I have also established my covenant with them, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, with them, covenant with them, to give them the land of Canaan, Palestine, the land of their pilgrimage, wherein they were strangers. And I have also heard the groaning of the children of Israel, whom the Egyptians keep in bondage, and I have remembered my covenant. Lord, remember his covenant. Wherefore say unto the children of Israel, I am the Lord, and I will bring you out from under the burdens of the Egyptians, and I will rid you out of their bondage, and I will redeem you with a stretched out arm and with great judgments. All right, but it came to pass, it came to pass that we ended up in Egypt again. The place that is spiritually called Egypt, America. So as prophesied, the Lord said what? He would stretch forth his hand. Let me get that in the book of Isaiah, Isaiah 11:11. Isaiah chapter 11 and verses 11. Share the tab. It says, and it shall come to pass in that day that the Lord shall set his hand again, the second time, to recover the remnant of his people, which shall be left from Assyria, and from Egypt, and from Pathros, and from Cush, and from Elam, and from Shinar, and from Hamath, and from the isles of the sea. So he will stretch forth his hand a second time. All right, the first time, the Lord stretched forth his hand to recover, to save his people. The first deliverance, all right, would have been in Egypt. All right, but this time he's going to stretch forth his hand to recover the remnant. He's going to save his elect and bring them to the land. As it says here in the book of Jeremiah, Jeremiah chapter 30, that 30, let's be at 24, sorry. Jeremiah chapter 24 and verses 6, it says, for I will set mine eyes upon them for good, and will bring them again to this land. He's going to bring us again to the land. Because we had it before in our possession, but we sinned and got spewed out. We got carried away. And I will build them and not pull them down. And I will plant them and not pluck them up. Because when he brings us back to the land, we're going to be there for eternity. All right, the eternal kingdom shall be saved with an everlasting salvation. It says that in the book of Isaiah. You get that, Isaiah chapter 45 and verses 17. It says, but Israel shall be saved in the Lord with an everlasting salvation. He shall not be ashamed nor confounded, world without end. All right, Lord, when the Lord saves us this time, we're going to be saved. No longer we're going to go into any captivity. All right, be under these heathen nations. We're going to have our possession, all right, which is the majority of the world. And these heathen nations going to be allotted to go back to their lands, after having served hardcore slavery for 1,000 years. Thus said the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yashan, they're going to always be our servants, these heathen nations. But the Most High has his chosen people, and his chosen people, his special people, all right, they served under these nations. So in return, these nations going to have to serve under them. It's going to be forever. And it says that in the book of Isaiah, the 60th chapter. Again, Isaiah 60 and verses 12. It says, "For the nation and kingdom that will not serve thee shall perish. Yea, those nations shall be utterly wasted." All right? They're going to be utterly wasted. If they don't serve the nation of Israel, they're going to be doomed. So when it is the children of Israel went conquering, and slaying these different heathen nations, the Canaanites, the Amorites, and all these nations that were in the promised land, it was justly done. All right? And these nations, they won't be able to reclaim the land by fighting us for it under the curses. It's not theirs. All right? It's just given to them in this time due to the fact that we fall under the curses. All right? So here another false statement made here by Didat.
See that? We have it. It belongs to us. We got it now. I said, right, how did you get it? Might is right. Is that your principle? That by force of arms you took it away from the poor Arabs? If that entitles you to Palestine, then they have a right to take it back by force. Why are you complaining? If by force, if you are entitled, if justifies you taking away, possessing somebody else's property, then by force of arms they can reclaim it. What are you crying about?
Now, as we read in Deuteronomy 11 chapter, that land, that allotted land, that's the land that the Most High care for. So the Most High chooses who he wants to be there. All right, which from the beginning he chose the nation of Israel to be there. He gave that promise to Abraham, as we read about. We went through that. The promise was for Abraham and his seed to inhabit Palestine. You understand? But due to the sins of the Israelites, all right, the Most High removed them, just like he did the Amorites. Their iniquity was full, and then he removed them. All right, but before their iniquity became full, Abraham had died. So he didn't get to step foot in the promised land and settle there. So there's no confusion pertaining to the promise. He's saying that because Abraham didn't get to inherit the land, that was a false promise. It was not. All right, you folks don't understand prophecy. You don't understand the scriptures because you're missing a key factor, which is reincarnation. Ultimately, Abraham, who had been promised, that man Abraham that had been promised, will receive the land. He will be a part of the land. He will be there living in the land, inhabiting the land through reincarnation. You understand? So this the land of Israel or the Palestinian coast, all of Canaan belongs to the Israelites. That's not up for debate. All right. Let's get this precept here as we close. The book of Ezekiel chapter 21 and verses 27. It says, "I will overturn it." Most about to turn this place upside down. All right, through the nuclear destruction. That is what's going to come. You're going to cause these nations to gather for war. All right, to bring an end to the wicked rule, mainly Esau. He's going to also nuke the land of Israel, like spoken of in Ezekiel 38 and verse 18. He's going to purge his land. All right, which he's about to bring his children into, return them to. And it shall be no more until he come whose right it is. Until he come whose right it is, which is our Lord Yahweh Shai. It's his right. Because the promise that was made to Abraham and unto his seed, all right, ultimately belongs to Yahweh Shai. All right, because he's the head Israelite. He's the son of God. He's the head child of God, if you may. That's why he told him in Psalms the second chapter, "Ask of me, and I will give you the heathen for your inheritance and the uttermost parts of the earth for your possession." You understand? Scripture also calls him the king of Jerusalem. So that is the one whose right it is. The right to the land is not Esau, Edom's own, or Ahmadidat's own, or the Ishmaelite's own. The Lord Yahweh Shai. and his people until he comes, whose right it is, and I will give it him. Gonna give it him. So all the confusion gonna end when the Lord returns. It's gonna be settled. The Lord comes, these nations are gonna go to war. The third world war is gonna be happening, and the Lord is gonna destroy these nations. None of them gonna win. These nations are gonna be destroyed by the Lord. They're gonna turn their attention to fight against him. All right, with the space force, their armies, they're gonna try to fight the Lord, and the Lord is gonna destroy them. That's where Revelation 12 comes in. You understand? So the nation of Israel physically, they don't have to battle for the land. If that was the true people in the land right now, it wouldn't have any war. All right. And guess what? The true people that is to return to the land, they ain't gonna return on their own. So there's no way these people that fighting for the land could be the people. It wasn't prophesied that the children of Israel had to come and fight for no land. The Lord, when he comes, he's going to fight for us and he's going to bring us to the land. Let me read this precept. Salakia. Right. From the book of Genesis. Zechariah. Zechariah chapter 12 and verses 8. It says, in that day shall the Lord defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. The Lord is going to defend the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And he that is feeble among them, and that day shall be as David, and the house of David shall be as God, as the angel of the Lord before them. The Lord is going to defend. And shall come to pass in that day that I will seek to destroy all the nations that come against Jerusalem. The Lord is going to destroy all the nations. Israel ain't gonna have to fight the nations for the land. All right. Next precept here, Zechariah 14 and verses 12. It says, and this shall be the plague wherewith the Lord will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. And how is that going to be done? Through fire, nuclear missiles. All right, that's how that's going to be done. And the Lord is the one doing it. Like they say, he created the smiths. All right, to prepare instrument for his work. The nukes, ICBM missiles. That's how the nation of Israel is going to inherit their land, re-inherit or re-inhabit their land. Through the Lord causing these nations to create nuclear missiles, causing a third world war. He scripted say he mustered the host of the army to the battle. His determination is to gather the nations, to pour his indignation, his wrath upon them via these nukes. And he's going to return and also join in the destruction. Send laser beams from the chariots. Use the chariot technology, the sickle, to destroy them. And also gather his elect and then bring them to the land. That's what's going to happen. All right, the hidden age, the fight's going to be over. That's when the battle, I did that say the battle was over. When you're talking to the Jew, or the so-called Jewish. All right, so the battle was over because that Jewish doesn't know prophecy. He's not the people that the prophecy pertains to, the promise pertains to. But we are the people that the promise. And through the scriptures, we are able to defend our statement. All right, we are able to prove that we are. All right. So let's hope this lesson was edifying, if not informative. With that, I want to give all praises and glory to Yahweh, Ba'asham Yahweh Shai, Ba'asham Rachakodash, double honor to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone, our teachers that surely do rule well. Peace, love, salutations to the men, the brethren, on the four corners of this world that continues to spread this word, this gospel in all sincerity and in truth. Your brother Kalab, saying keep feeding your faith, starve it out, say that. Stay strong. Shalom.